Hey, what's up, party people? Happy Monday. You know what I want to do all day today? Watch Batman. We're going to see if we can have the first ever 3-hour long SJU, because that is the length, reportedly, of the new Batman movie. We're going to debate, is that too girthy, not girthy enough? Does size matter? That's today's topic mostly. But we also have some other bits and bobs of news. There's a Christmas Story cinematic universe that I was not aware of. Some people are joining the Ahsoka show, and some fans are bringing a semi-justified lawsuit because Ana de Armas was not in the movie yesterday. We will discuss and debate.
You're signing on for this. You're joining the class
I may join that class action. I think there's something there. Maybe, well, we'll talk about it later. There's also your comments and questions, so keep those coming throughout in the chat, and we will discuss at the end of the show. But for now, we begin Part 1, Act 1. I assume this movie will be split into chapters like the Justice League or something of the Batman, because we got an official runtime. Without credits, this film is 2 hours and 47 minutes long. So this is really sniffing 3 hours, a hair under 3 hours.
Yeah, it's like Lord of the Batman Fellowship of Gotham.
Extended edition. Yeah. So this is the only comic book movies longer than this to date are Endgame and Zack Snyder's Justice League. The longest Batman film, Dark Knight Rises, was a brisk 2 hours and 45.
Races right by.
Also, a Hollywood Reporter in this report, some test screenings of the Batman were a 4-hour cut. A 4-hour cut of the Batman. Yeah. And people got lost, man. Some people didn't make it out. But this is a movie that I am super excited for and remain excited for. I wouldn't say more or less excited for once they announce the runtime. Because I think that a movie should be as long as it needs to be, and we'll see if it earns that runtime or not. But what are your feelings on this announcement and on girthy comic book film runtimes in general, Billy?
I'm just super stoked that I was really missing the when am I going to empty my bladder conversations that we had all of Endgame.
Oh yeah,
so many articles. I really was concerned about America's ability to hold their pee. And now we can revisit that. So
yeah.
To me, honestly, this is one of those pieces of news. I'm like, is it though? Like, is this really that important? I mean, I've seen 90-minute movies that felt like 5 hours. I've seen 3-hour movies that felt like 90 minutes. So I think I'm with you. If it's good, I won't notice, or I won't even think about it.
Just skip your custom Riddler latte foam art coffee before the movie and you'll be fine. Can we ask, I do have thoughts on this, but I
BYOB to every comic book movie, and that's bring my own Baja Blast from Taco Bell. And if I'm not done with like a 64-ounce full strength Baja Blast by Act 2,
wait. Are you cutting the strength of your Baja Blast sometimes?
I mean, some of these coastal elites like to water it down, but not me. I like my full strength BB.
I was just gonna say, where is how is he producing latte foam art? That looks like a seedy diner. They don't have a latte foam setup there.
Oh, he brings his own.
It's part of the riddle, Lon.
Yeah, it's part of the
plan. That's why he's so mysterious.
Riddle me that.
If I saw a guy in a trench coat just like pull out a little bit of milk, I'd be like, whoa, I am leaving. We are done.
Got his iconography worked out.
We didn't talk about the costume that released, but he's got like a spooky poncho. There's room for a battery-operated milk foamer in there.
Wow, that's commitment to a bit. You've got to admire Paul Dano for really taking it to that level. My overall thought of this is, I think that in a lot of these conversations, we mix up pacing and length. Like that, you hear that a movie is going to be very long and it makes people feel like it's going to be very slow. And that's not always the case. There are movies that I think are pretty brisk, that are relatively easy to watch, that are close to 2.5 hours. And then there are movies that are a tight 2 hours or less that are a slog. And so, I think that without seeing the movie, you don't know what the pacing is going to be like and how compelling it's going to be. So it's hard to really speak to the length. If it's slow and boring and 2 hours and 45 minutes, then yeah, that'll be unpleasant. But I don't.
Do you hope that this 3-hour movie is like? How do you hope that they will use that, say, extended runtime? Is that to deepen your understanding of the characters, to add more subplots and like introduce a new Reeves-ish Batman world that we can sit in? Like, if you take like a tight 90-minute. look, no story has to be longer than 3 sentences. Like Batman discovers a crime and he solves it and then it's over. But like, what do you hope they use the 3 hours for that maybe you haven't gotten before in a Batman film?
I mean, this looks like a very different version of Bruce Wayne. Like, it looks like he's not even pretending to be kind of, high society. So there's definitely stuff going on. I mean, look, if it were me at this point and seeing like there's Catwoman, there's Penguin, there's Riddler, I'd go the Michael Cimino way. If it's a 3 hour movie, each hour is it's kind of its own mini movie, Deer Hunter style. That's
Okay.
what I would do. But that's not what they're gonna do. So who knows? I don't know. But if you have the time, take your time. Let's get to know Bruce. That was the best part of what Nolan did was he made Batman movies that were for the most part about Batman. Like, let's do it again. Let's do it again and you have a different Batman. Let's get to know your
Let's get to know
Batman.
this pale little freak.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of what this movie is doing, because there's a couple different projects that we already know are sort of pinging off this. I mean, in addition to, I'm sure they're hoping to set up sequels to the film. We're getting a Penguin show with Colin Farrell. We're getting the new Paul Dini animated show that's like in this Bat world.
Mm,
So my sense is that, yeah, this is going to be a lot of like exploring what this new Gotham is about, and like a little bit of what Nolan does in Batman Begins as well, where it's like there's a lot of scenes of like, here's the geography of it, and here's who runs the city, and here's why the DA is not able to, bring these criminals to justice, and we need Batman. And I'm feeling like that's what a lot of this is going to do. We're going to get this detective noir sort of story, but we're also going to get a lot of place setting about like, here's the new Gotham, and here's what we're doing with it, and here's what all the villains are like, and
yeah.
now we're ready to go with new Batman stories.
Okay. Well, do you feel though that I saw this idea floated somewhere else, but it's like, should there be? Are we going to get into the cut debate, the director's cut? Should there be a cinematic cut versus maybe a home cut, like where they have the 4 hour long one at home, and maybe it's a 2.5 in cinemas, or do you think that there should just be one consistent version of a film like this?
I mean, I like a director's cut. I'm not anti-director's cut, but I think it has to be like, it's got to be from the director. Like, we'll hear what Matt
Well,
Reeves has
I
to
mean,
say.
he's screening a 4 hour version
Yeah,
right
but
now.
that doesn't mean the fact that they showed some people a 4 hour version doesn't mean that's the definitive one, and anything less is like not what Matt Reeves wanted. It's just like he wanted reactions on this. It could be that he's always had more of a 3 hour version in mind, that he just wanted to see how things would play. Like, it's a whole process, and we try to like take these bits out and be like, well, it's a 4 hour movie, and like, it's up to Matt Reeves. He's the
Yeah.
director. If the movie comes out in theaters and if there's another version that he would really like people to see, sure, I want to see it myself. But if he comes out with this and says, this is my version, then, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. I don't remember a lot of people talking about it, or maybe I missed the talk, but I remember at one point Quentin Tarantino for Netflix re-edited, I think it was Hateful Eight,
Yeah, he made like a
into
mini series,
yeah,
like a
into
4 part mini series
episodes.
out of it.
Mhm.
Which is like, yeah, if Matt Reeves decided like, hey, I kind of want to play around and see if I can do a 5 hour cut, but as like 5 different episodes, like, sure, you're still gonna have the other cut available to you if you don't like
Right.
that,
And this is one of the great advantages of streaming, is that it may not have made sense to like make another cut of a movie to re-release it in theaters, but you do want to drive people to HBO Max, and more Batman content is always going to have value. So, this may be the sort of thing that we get more of now that we're in the streaming era, and these filmmakers have services that they can drop extra bonus stuff on.
I
Yeah.
think people are gonna realize real fast though that 95% of directors' cuts are pretty terrible. And
That's not I'd say it's more like
no,
60-40 good bad, actually.
no, I can think of at the top of my head, I can think of maybe Lord of the Rings might be the only
Yeah.
director's
No,
cut that I
Blade
prefer.
Runner for sure.
Blade Runner gets
The Ridley
better.
Scott version where he got
um,
rid of the voiceover is great.
Daredevil's better.
Hard
I don't like
disagree.
Snyder cut. It's better.
It's better.
It's better.
Again, I disagree. I think like then you have movies like That Thing You Do, which I think is like I love that movie so much, but then you see like this longer cut and you're like, woof, this is a great teaching tool.
That what's that other Ridley Scott one? The Joan of Arc one, right? That's
no, it's a Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven,
yeah.
Crusades one, and also
Yeah.
has a very good director. Another great one is Brazil. Terry Gilliam got to redo it because there had been so much studio intervention. So we finally have like the real version of Brazil. But then there's also cases like I was going to say Richard Kelly. He did Southland Tales, which I think if you watch the original Cannes cut, which I have on Blu-ray, much better. Makes a lot
I
more
gotta check
sense,
that out.
much more interesting. But then Donnie Darko, I think he kind of messed it up. Like the director's
Yeah.
cut's not nearly as good as the theatrical.
Interesting.
So it's a mixed bag, you know. You
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna get.
Well, there you go. So an unsatisfying answer to is Batman too long? It depends.
I gotta say,
We'll see.
Matt Reeves tends to make longer. Like the Apes films are kind of long,
Yeah,
and I don't feel like the Apes films are too long.
they do not drag now.
So I have total confidence that he's going to produce something that is compelling and fun to watch. That you're not ready to end when it's ready to end, even though it's long.
Although, oh no, I always get Matt Reeves and James Mangold confused because I was gonna say it's like more Logan, but this isn't Logan. He's a different guy. He's the Apes guy, not the Logan guy.
This is the Apes guy. and Let Me In. He did the and Cloverfield.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, let's move on from Batman. We must put the cowl back and discuss and put on our Santa hats here in late January. I was unaware of this. The Christmas Story is getting a new sequel for HBO Max. Peter Billingsley returns, and he's still doing stuff, right? He's one of the child actors done good, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he got hot. Look at that.
He produces a lot of stuff. He and Vince Vaughn have a company together,
right?
And he produces like a lot of Jon Favreau's early stuff, and
And he was in, I saw he was in Elf. This new story takes place in the 70s, which sees an adult Ralphie. When did Christmas Story take place? Like the 30s?
It was in like the 30s or 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's weird because Gene Shepard, whose memories it's based on, was a kid much earlier than that, but they bumped it up because they didn't want the movie to be the Great Depression, which they thought would be a bummer. So it's set during the 40s.
Gotcha.
The original.
I love the pull quote. Great Depression, kind of a bummer.
Kind of a bummer.
Well, they wanted it to be like warm and nostalgic and not have to be like, and then we had to get in line for food.
Yeah, the working title was The Big Bummer, but on release it was The Great Depression.
The worst Christmas ever. This doesn't play.
So we're getting what we call now a legacy sequel, where it's a sequel, but it's also kind of a redo with some of the same actors. But it turns out, I was unaware, Kieran Culkin played Ralphie in the 1992 sequel called My Summer Story, whose plot was completely ignored by 2012's Christmas Story 2 with Braden Lemasters as Ralphie Parker. Jerry O'Connell also played Ralphie in 1988's Disney Channel movie based on a different Gene Shepard story about the same family. So we're approaching a cinematic Ralphie verse with Braden. What's his name? We have Jerry O'Connell, Braden Lemasters, Kieran Culkin, and the OG stepping through the portal of Peter Billingsley. What do we think about reuniting all the Ralphies Endgame style to fight Santa? Or what's your pitch for the new Christmas Story?
I don't know. I just was thinking when you said there's a Christmas Story sequel, it's like a kid really wanting a gun plays very differely for Christmas in 2022.
I don't know. It could be like a breakout, like American Sniper style hit, you know?
A Christmas Story. I like it. It's a good movie. I'm not here to trash it, but it's like I feel like it's become such a part of our culture, not just because of the movie or the characters, but because it's like it was on TV every year, and there's all this like cultural stuff that's wrapped up in it. And is there a desire to go back to especially 30 years later when all the characters and the scenarios aren't going to play out the same? Like, what is this recapturing really?
It's just got to be nostalgia for a later time. I mean, the first movie is like, it came out in the 60s. It was about nostalgia for, I guess, the
80s. The first movie came out in the
80s. Sorry, 80s and nostalgia for the 60s. So this one's going to come out.
Gene Shepard wrote these stories in the 60s, being nostalgic for, let's say, the 40s, because that's what the movie said. And then in the 80s, they made a movie that was nostalgic for the 40s based on stories that were written in the 60s. So now in 2022, we're getting a movie that's nostalgic for the 80s movie that was nostalgic for the 60s stories that was nostalgic for the 40s, but really the 20s.
We call this the Wonder Years theorem.
Yeah.
where we are nostalgic for different times made in different times by different people of different
that's
times.
what I
It's just it's Inception. Yeah.
Because Christmas Story taps 40s nostalgia. This, I guess, is going to be tapping 70s nostalgia, but that's not something I associate with a Christmas Story.
But they're tapping our nostalgia of the 80s movie. So I
Right.
want to see a 70s set piece made like it's in the 80s.
I'm just like, what would be a scene? Like, what would be a scene they could do that would make you nostalgic for a Christmas Story? Like,
I mean, someone's
a
got to
kid
get
licks
a tongue
hole?
stuck to something,
Yeah,
right?
like-
Yeah. But like bigger.
I don't. This is a really confusing one. Like, they're gonna bring it. Like, if they were like, "Hey, Lon, do you want to write this movie?" I'd be like, "Sure, I want to write something." But this is you really feel for that person, because like, what do you even do? Like, where do you go with this?
It's HBO Max. So what if he gets his tongue stuck to LeBron James?
Like, they're watching Antiques Roadshow and somebody has the leg lamp and they got to get it back. Like, what do you do? Where do you
The
go
problem
with
too
this
is
story?
like, because you have to stay within the timeline of that first movie, like, yeah, you can't go past the 70s. So you can't even touch upon like the stuff today where like kids don't really want toys. They want phones and like action figures and stuff. Like, they just like, you go to Target or whatever, like the toy aisles are like starting to disappear a lot. So it's like you can't even touch on that, because in the 70s, like, that wasn't a thing. So it's like, yeah, I really truly wouldn't even know what the story would be for a Christmas Story
Yeah.
2. Like, unless like Ralphie's like really trying to get his kid to get excited for Christmas like he was, and his kid's like his dad, just like, whatever, all I care about is
And
turkey
he's being
dogs.
cyberbullied by Scott Farkas.
It's like the narration is weird, like, because I'm assuming Ralphie narrates again, but now it's the dad narrating. Like, that's not the whole joke of the original, is that it's from a kid POV, like Christmas from this excited child perspective.
Well, I can't wait, Lon. I've got Christmas fever.
Very confusing.
Yeah. This sounds dumb. Let's move on.
I mean, I have to watch it now just to see what they ended up
what the
figuring
idea
out.
is.
Yeah.
The Chris Evans Rock Red Notice holiday adventure they announced this morning.
What do we think that? Let's pivot to that. It's called. What do we think that is? The Rock and Chris Evans are doing another Red Notice.
I got the description of it is like one of the most amazing things I've ever read. First of all, bear in mind, this movie the idea for this movie came from Hiram Garcia, the president of production at the Rock's company.
The Rock's buddy. Yeah,
this
sure.
is just an executive coming up with the movie.
Well, it's like his childhood friend, and he's a member of the Rock's posse. You got to put your friends on.
This is Turtle coming up with the next Vinny Chase movie. The film, which aims to shoot this year, is a globe-trotting 4-quadrant action-adventure comedy.
I love all those words.
Imagining a whole new universe to explore.
I love the word
within
universe.
Holiday genre.
Who doesn't love the holidays?
Wow.
It's a Red Notice that they're just coming out and saying we're doing another holiday Red Notice.
I've never heard a description for a movie only using buzzwords. And
No, holiday narrows it down a little bit.
I love too that in this uses globetrotting to mean we're going to project all kinds of locations on that green screen in Burbank. It's going to be Paris one time, and then it's going to be Mozambique. You're not going to know where you're pretending to go.
I think The Rock is clearly Santa, and this is going to be like that. Right? He's got to be.
Yeah.
He's got to be buff Santa.
It's some sort of night, Christmas Eve around the world, one night.
Yeah, could you steal every
Heist.
kid's presents before they wake up? That's what I would do.
Yes. It's for sure something like that.
Oh man, how are we going to work Gal Gadot into this? Is the problem?
Honestly, they should just call it a very Red Notice Christmas, and just like, why are we even bothering? Well, let's dispense with all this.
Rudolph the Red Notice Christmas.
Yeah,
I
I love it. Yes, I love it.
Christmas cards are now known as Red Notices. Just so you know.
Ryan Reynolds for sure voicing Rudy. No
you don't
doubt.
get a lump of coal, you get a Red Notice.
The Rock is Santa.
I have a lot of really X-rated Red Notice jokes that I'm going to save for another day. Let's talk about this.
Come up again because every movie now is
Every
Red
movie has a Red Notice. Let's talk briefly about this lawsuit, which I think is hilarious. There's some fans suing Universal because Ana de Armas, everyone's favorite, one of my favorites, was not in the movie yesterday, even though she was in the trailer. She was actually, for one scene, 10 seconds of the trailer, you got Ana de Armas. You buy your ticket because you're a founding member of the De Armas Army. her fan club, and you show up, you plunk down your 20. They're in the UK, so 17 quid. I don't know how much your money is worth. I have no idea. What's a quid?
55
Anyway?
pounds and a shilling.
Pounds.
I would assume.
It costs 58 pennies.
How many 10 pennies or glints of silver you put down? I don't know.
was just like, oh boy, I want a ticket for the movie, and they're like, that'll be 9 pence.
I'm here for Dionne. Yeah, you put on your Knives Out T-shirt with her face on it. Was that movie even out yet? I don't know. And you're sitting there in the front row, and you don't get any de armas. So you do the natural thing and sue Universal Studios for $5 million.
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of justified. The money, the level of money.
I was gonna say, where did they come up with the damages for? Like, how do you calculate
They must
$5
be
million of
imagining
damages?
They're suing on behalf of
everybody who saw the movie
who
because
watched yesterday thinking
Ana de
it was
Armas'
an
face.
Ana de Armas movie. It was disappointing.
But
So-
even so, like, I don't know. That seems like a really small number. Then wouldn't you go off the box office gross that divided by how many tickets?
We're not presuming everybody who saw it only saw it for Ana de Armas, and that there
I
was
am.
no. There
I
was
think
no
they should ask
pleasure
for
to
more.
it.
But see, look, as a
I think you have
judge,
to
I've
figure out-
already thrown this case out because it's like, well, how do you prove that anyone besides yourself went for Ana de? How do you prove it?
I don't think that's like that. You still hear the case because the case is for false advertising, and it doesn't get more false than showing a movie star in your trailer that's not in the movie. That's legit. I don't know. You know, that's like a little bit of a switch.
Can we like that? That was one sequence. But
Now it gets a little hairy because it's like, okay, they showed a sequence that got cut, or like Endgame, you know, they kind of do some CGI in the trailers. So
right.
that,
That's
like,
true. We never saw Hulk running
Never saw the
behind
Hulk.
the Avengers towards the battle.
does that count as a character? You know, but I think that
I was-
removing a character or a famous actor from the trailers that's not in the movie, that's kind of deceptive. No.
No, I don't think so. I think there was good faith that the scene was shot. That they could probably prove that at the time of the trailer she was in that version of the cut. And it's like ordering a boxing or UFC pay-per-view, card subject to change.
But they don't say film subject. Well, they maybe do. I don't read the fine print. Do movie trailers say like have a disclaimer like the following might not be in what
They
you
might-
end up
they might have to,
watching?
I feel like there's always been an element of deception. Like sometimes trailers are edited or something to make it look like the movie is one way and not the other. But it really has ramped up in the last few years. Like we're now at the point where Marvel is releasing like digitally manipulated trailers purposefully to mislead you about who's in the movie or what's going on. So I think this may be a larger reaction to that like you can trust what you're seeing in trailers less and less as time has gone on.
I mean, like Rogue One is like a completely different movie.
Right,
Like
yeah.
none of those scenes end up in that movie. Like
And that
I
was
guess
less,
you
that
could-
was also less purposeful and more just like scrambling. Like let's turn this into a movie.
We have to put a stop to this.
That's
though. I think this
true.
is this lawsuit is our best chance before every trailer is Man of Steel and every movie is Red Notice. You know, you go in, you get all hyped
That's-
from the trailer.
I think that's where this is going is like, do we even need, at this point, do we even need trailers? They could just be like, hey, you're one of the people that's interested in Moon Knight. It's coming out next month. Like, you don't even need, like, it's just like a part of the hype cycle at this point. It's not really selling anybody.
Well, what is advertising if not like the hype cycle? I mean, I think that I don't know. I think that this is kind of
Like,
shady.
There's 4 movies. And so it's just like, all you have to do is be like, you guys like the Blue movie, right? There's that one.
Is that Avatar?
Yeah, we're just dividing them into categories. Like, okay, if you like movie C, you're gonna want this one. If you like the franchise A, you're gonna like this.
I don't know. I think that there's a gray area when you're talking about scenes, but a full recognizable movie star. Well, I don't know. If you stop 10 people on the street, how many of them would know Ana de Armas by
Also,
sight?
this was several years ago now when they were promoting yesterday. She wasn't nearly as famous yet.
Right. I think if they like have a certain, I don't know, go by a Q score or go by Family Feud, how many people guess them or whatever. You
mean, if
can't
she
cut
was-
somebody out of a movie if they're famous
If
enough.
she was current fame on a de Armas, they probably wouldn't have cut her out of the movie at all.
There was no
Exactly.
Knives Out at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
you know?
So she had not yet reached this level of international.
Now, my question is, could you, and I don't know because I do not own it. If anyone owns Yesterday on Blu-ray, do they have her deleted scene on there? And
Oh,
could you
interesting.
consider that a make good?
Yeah. Yeah, there's your compensation. That's a great question. I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was sweet. I don't know. I liked it. But no, not enough Armas. So I'm joining this lawsuit. You'll see me as part of the undersigned demanding my $5 million for the $4.99 I paid to rent it. All right, let's respond to you guys have been talking this whole time. Let's talk back. Mark Sheridan, do you think directors have too much power and that there needs to be more editing in movies? I don't think that the directors have too much power.
Wait,
quite the opposite.
editing. It's confusing because the editor is not like working against the director and they're on opposing.
Well, but they can get
sides.
conflicting notes from like the director and the studio. Like,
Yeah.
No, I need a
it's-
movie house and a movie senate, and they
Yeah, but
need
it's
to
not- it's
checks
not
and
like-
balance each other
Yeah,
from the
it's not like
director.
the editor needs more power of the direct. Like it's just a weird way of thinking.
yeah, I mean, and
No,
obviously,
I think I get the
differs.
spirit of the question. you
Well,
know.
yeah, I
I
think if you're
interrupt.
talking about like mainstream box office, like a franchise filmmaking, that the directors, by and large, are there to execute, you know, the studio's vision, the Kevin Feige's vision for this film, and add a little sprinkle of their own flair on top. But you're kind of like a TV director when you join these franchises.
I mean,
Like-
I think it sort of depends on the director. Like, it seems pretty obvious that like James Gunn has more of his own voice in the kinds of projects he's
Mhm.
doing, whereas, you know, and I don't want to. I'm not going to pick anyone specific. Whereas some other people who maybe have less of a distinctive voice or a famous name, they're more of a journeyman who's coming in and sort of like doing what the studio says and like putting their own sort of spin on it. But think
I remember
it
that-
differs
oh,
movie
sorry,
to
yeah.
movie, really.
I was gonna say, I remember the conversation around James Gunn, like, well, how come he got to make Guardians the way he wanted? It was like, because he wasn't doing Captain America. He wasn't doing characters that everyone at least had some base knowledge of. Like, of course, they're gonna let him try to take a talking tree and a raccoon and do the best that he can with it. And I think now James Gunn gets to do what he wants because he proved it on that. But it's like,
Well, he's still
yeah.
playing in that same sandbox.
he's still
Like,
playing in the
taking
sandbox.
Peacemaker, and they're giving him free reign to do that, but it's not Wonder Woman.
And James
But
Gunn
again, that's
is a weird example because he's kind of become like Marvel's house style. Is like, I think Guardians kind of was a blueprint. Obviously Iron Man, but then Guardians was where it really became like, okay, here's the level of humor.
But I
that
think
we
that's
mixed in.
what
But you can
James
also
Gunn has
point to, like,
done.
a Taika Waititi who gets his own sort of voice and stuff, and like there are those examples of people who come into these huge franchises and then make something that feels their own. It's just not all the time.
Well,
Like,
to put it,
No.
bring it back to the question, they definitely don't have too much power.
They
It's
don't
not
have
like
too
they've got
much power.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're not like dictating anything crazy. You know, like
Yeah.
James Gunn. Like what I was gonna say was like I think he's built a niche out of like, well, I won't take Spider-Man, I won't take Batman, but give me this other guy that maybe I can try some other stuff with. That it's not a huge loss if I don't get to do it or it doesn't turn out very well. I think that's how you get Guardians. That's how you get a Peacemaker. But yeah, I also don't think like as much as I know this question was really about Zack Snyder. Like I don't think like he had too much or not enough power. I think it was the fans and the online discourse that kind of like shaped a lot of that narrative. He got to put out his movie ultimately, which is good.
The
I'm glad
Snyder
for him.
stuff also got so tied up. There's so many things going on. It's not just
Right.
one story. Like there were real human tragedies. There were
Right.
like there was so much going on during that period that it's so hard to iron it all out. I don't think it's a case of this person had too much power over that person.
Mm.
Like I usually
Agreed.
I don't think that's how these collaborations are usually working out. And it would usually not be director versus editor. It would be like studio versus creative team or what have you.
Sorry, there's so many great questions. You guys are really bringing it today. Maybe we'll have to save some of these for later. I want to ask this one sort of on theme. Wendigo 2064 asks, what director's body of work do you yesterday away? So you're the only one who can make their movies. And I just want to say how badly that would go if like, okay, George Lucas is gone and I have to just kind of recreate Star Wars just with the filmmaking knowledge that I have.
Like from memory?
Yeah, I guess I could like sort of do the script a little bit, but like he was an auteur at that point. Like he was really building and creating Star Wars. So it would just be like a cartoon kids meal drawing of a stormtrooper.
It's kind of funny. Like I'd like to see somebody's recreation of the original Star Wars, but they only from memory. You can't go back and look at anything. You just have to tell people what to do based on what's already there.
Just the crawl would be like, Leia, you know Leia, right?
Like, oh, what was that? Like he was a smuggler, I think.
Yeah, I get all the quotes wrong. Like, but is there any director that you would want to erase from everyone's memory so that you could step in, or what do you think you could do the best job at stepping in and recreating their
really
films?
Funny because they're so specific. Like to erase like Wes Anderson or David Lynch, and then like you pretend that you just made those movies. I'm so nothing like what anyone imagines like Wes Anderson would be like. And it would be really funny to meet me, be like, "Yep, roll Tenenbaums, that was me."
See, I'm opposite.
Based on
I
my
feel
own
like
childhood.
I'd be more on the Spencer line of like, oh man, I can't do that. Like I can't be Tim Burton. Like I didn't have that bad of a childhood. I know, but then I wouldn't be famous and I wouldn't break out. So it's like I'd rather take like, I don't know, Peyton Reed or something, like a working director that I'm like, yeah, you've made some sizable hits. I'll do Yes Man and Ant-Man and like just have a good living and stable work. Why not?
You got to wear a lot of like.
You're replaceable, Peyton Reed.
You gotta really. Gotta do the Paul F. Tompkins like dress up thing to be believably Peyton Reed, and that's it.
Yeah, you're halfway there. Wow, it's catching stray bullets, Peyton Reed. Okay, last.
It's like he's like down to
he's
love,
solid.
Down with love or whatever. Like
he's a solid director who I can't pinpoint like a distinctive style, so I feel like I could easily mimic it.
He made Ant-Man, Bring It On, and Yes Man. That's some crowd pleasers right there. So
that's all I need. Yeah,
you have my respect, Peyton Reed. Also, Screen Junkie's guest. So you know what? He's willing to put in the work. Okay, final question.
And Down with Love. You guys forgot about 2003 rom-com Down with Love?
I did forget about that. Shocking. And then Raynard City Update Channel asks, what franchise should have a Matrix Resurrections-esque metaquill, where they're like they're acknowledging the existence of the franchise itself?
Aren't they all going to get one of these soon enough?
They're all going to get one of these. And I've pitched this before. This is the only Back to the Future sequel pitch that I like, where they're going Back to the Future to stop them from remaking Back to the Future.
I've often pitched this as like, this is where Fast and the Furious has to inevitably go. Like we've done space, we'll do time travel maybe, but then the only other place to go is metaverse, where like, the Toretto gang has to like go stop Universal Pictures from making any more Fast movies.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and they're like casting The Rock, and Vin Diesel like murders the casting agent, runs them over with a Supra.
Like Dom really does one out and just like raise this kid in the barn or wherever he and Letty live now, and he's like, they keep writing him into more adventures where he's got to go globe trotting and he's just sick of it. So open up.
The last film, like Tyrese was on the cusp of breaking through to the fifth wall.
And they've just got to go like assassinate Chris Morgan, writer of the Fast and Furious franchise.
But then they have to go back and erase Point Break. And that's when they're like, no, like somebody draws a line. It's like, we're not going to get rid of Point Break.
I think they only get rid of the new Point Break, but then they have a change of heart. And
you mean like, the best one?
We can't get rid of the original.
Billy, any super meta franchise you want to see go up its own butt?
Yeah, I think the only way that you could do maybe a Terminator these days is to just literally just like have them show up at like robotics labs and be like, what sequel did you not watch of our franchise to see how this is going to end? Just stop. Or do it Jurassic Park. Same thing, where it's just like, guys, like we did Jurassic Park as like a cautionary tale, and like you're still doing it. Like enough, knock it off.
But how did dinosaurs come into that anyways?
We're almost
they just don't listen. They don't listen to Jeff Goldblum.
We're almost there. We got Sam Neill and Laura Dern fighting dinosaurs on like the Hollywood freeway. Like we're very close to this one already.
All right. Please leave your suggestions in the comments below. We'll be back tomorrow with Honest Trailer Commentaries. Wednesday, we'll still be talking Boba Fett. And we'll be back next week. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.